Who's the most annoying name poet that you've ever encountered and why?
The most annoying? Annoying in what sense? In
Annoying in
any
the sense that could be like really hypocritical, just whatever grates on you. There's a lot of essays that you've written where you point out these little hypocrisies or things that are not what they seem to be.
well, let me. Uh, there, there were uh, there were a lot of people. It's one of those things. There are some things that I could say, but I'm not going to say because if I mention a name, some of these people will be alive and I wouldn't get sued. So I'm going to say I'll give probably the thing that annoyed me the most and wouldn't get someone to sue me is in the mid 1990s, 95, 96 or so. I saw Donald Hall come for a reading in Minneapolis, and I had seen him once or twice before in the late 80s at the West Side Y in New York. And he came with his wife, Jane Kenyon, another bad poet, and they, read their little banalities. They got the polite applause. They were pushing some book, or they did a question and answer. I don't remember exactly. Uh, but he came about a year or so after his wife died. I think Jane Kenyon died in 94, 95, and she died of cancer or something. And, yeah, of course, uh, it was no great loss to literature, but, she's a human being, and, it's, you know, uh, he certainly had a right to be sad. But the thing that I found very crass about the way that he manipulated the thing, and it reminded me very much of the way Ted Hughes, just a year or two later, or maybe around the same time he did birthday letters on Sylvia Plath, uh, Hall would read. He wrote a book of poems for his wife Kenyon. I forget the name of it, or he had a sequence of poems. I forget which. He comes pushing this book. It's at a local church in just just south of downtown in Minneapolis. I went there with a friend of mine. Is either a woman poet named Sindra Halm or my friend Pam Haas. We went to hear him read. I think it was Sindra Halm, and after about the second or third poem, I turned to Sindra, and he started reading a poem, and I had the book, or she had the book, and we were reading along with whatever poem he was going to read. And I whispered to her, and I'd say, after this line, he's going to cry, or he's going to pause. It did, and he every time, and I did that literally for about 10 or 12 times, and I knew every single time that he was going to pause and he was going to cry, and I and this is not to say that he wasn't genuinely upset that his wife died. I'm sure he was, but it was an act, and it was a way to sell books, and I could just look around, and I saw the way people how they reacted to it, and I could go into some stuff like with a Robert Bly, and I'd seen him manipulate things, and I had some incidents with other poets, but this really aggravated me because even though he's a bad poet, Donald Hall has always cultivated a reputation as being, I guess a decent kind of guy. But it just seemed to me so crass and so materialistic to try to use the death of his wife to push his bad poetry, and it really soured my opinion of him as a man. Again, I don't say that he's a serial killer or a molester of children or anything like that, but I can't imagine if my wife Jessica died and I was to write a short story or a poem or an essay about it, reading it in public and weeping like that and doing it on cue, and uh, maybe Donald Hall didn't realize he was doing it. Maybe he was genuinely reacting. But if so, the dozen or more times that I knew at each word, at each comma, that he was going to cry or pause, that he did, because I am very good at picking up patterns and cadences, and when we've seen, for example, when I've argued with dumbasses online. Someone has emailed me something, or if I've sent a link to some blog where I'm arguing something, if I've argued something on politics or religion or something, and I've said, now watch, this person's going to come back and say something regarding this, and they always do. And it's the same way that I knew that Donald Hall was basically manipulating the situation, manipulating all these old women to feel sorry for him and buy the book, which they did. They flooded him, and for an hour afterward, he was signing the autographs and telling stories about his wife. And again, I'm sure he loved Jane Kenyon, but I just found it to be a very crass and demeaning thing, and it really said to me, he's not only a bad poet, but there's just something very crass and material, and I don't like that kind of a person.